now maybe Mr. Sheng, going back to you directly before then later on opening up to questions from the public, from the participants. You have seen this presentation of the city of Vienna and this trade-offs also, which are encountered with new measures. Is this a problematic you also have in Shanghai? I mean, do you also see you know, advantages of certain measures you implement, but then some kind of reverse effect on others? And if yes, if you could illustrate with an example, that would be very interesting for us.
And hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
And in Shanghai, we have a lot of solutions and examples about the how to deal with the COVID-19 with the smart and intelligent tools. And I think like Vienna, and we have a very strong ICT infrastructure. And with this ICT infrastructure, Shanghai have more data about the cities, and especially about the people who's coming to Shanghai, who's living in Shanghai, who about the data about the data with the public transportations, and so that we have more accurate information about the people, so that we can have more information about more information to control the pandemic. So in this way, we have another point to control is to how to help the elderly people. And in Shanghai, you know, many elderly people, they cannot use smartphones, they cannot use smart tools. So it's very important for them to have a more convenient situations in this pandemic time. In Shanghai, a lot of smart solutions are promoted in 2020, like shopping online, and almost many companies work at home and by internet. And if you go to a hospital, you have to use your smartphone to make registrations. But you know, many other people, they cannot use this smartphone. So it is very important for them to, very important to help them to use the smartphone, to use the smart applications in this application. So I think it is really trade-off in Shanghai to promoting smart city and to help the elder people. I think it's a very good examples to talk about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheng. If I might just follow up, you in your presentation, you also mentioned the use of robots in the field of healthcare. And when I introduced you, I mentioned you are also president of an association dealing with artificial intelligence. So you, beyond your engagement in the field of smart cities, you also have a particular affinity and knowledge in regard to artificial intelligence. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on this?
Okay, you know, the artificial intelligence is very important to Shanghai, and Shanghai is doing a lot, is putting out a lot of policies to help the company to use the AI technology and to help the organizations like a hotel, like hospital, like school to use artificial intelligence technologies. And also in the COVID-19 preventions, many of the organizations use AI technology, such like a new city imaging technology with AI technologies, algorithm, and they can figure out the COVID-19 in very short time. And about the robot, a lot of robot companies, they have produced many new products to help the hospitals to deliver, to clean, to help the workers in hospitals to do some dangerous work, you know. And I think it is very important in Shanghai. There is very important things to open the AI scenarios and the robot scenarios for the companies, and it will be benefit the companies and benefit the COVID-19 preventions. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheng. Nick Summer, artificial intelligence in the health sector in Vienna, is this also a topic? Is your agency involved in one way or the other?
Well, to us, artificial intelligence is, of course, one important technological pillar when it comes to digitization. We have, when it comes, maybe to get back to the robot argument also a little bit, what we try to do in Vienna is to experiment with drones, drone maintenance, for example, which helps us to prevent, for example, workers and service personnel from being exposed to dangerous situations. We could, for example, easily imagine that a similar kind of technology is also kind of used in hospitals or in health infrastructures to avoid certain people from getting exposed in person, so to speak. Of course, artificial intelligence is very important in Vienna when it comes to crunch, different types of urban data. We have, for example, developed within a very short span of time a special Stop Corona app, which is based on artificial intelligence technology when it comes to crunch the data, which prevented people in the beginning of the Corona crisis from getting to the hospital or from getting to the doctors and getting infected there, which was quite effective, so to speak. It's not to be confused with the Stop Corona apps that are promoted at the national level here in Austria and probably in Switzerland and Germany and other countries as well. It's simply a tool that has been developed in-house in the city of Vienna, which is which is rarely the case, because usually cities need longer and more time to develop technologies like that. On the other hand, you have to say it's not the kind of the initial or the basic task of a community to be a technology provider. And bigger cities, of course, can afford to provide technologies, but not in every case, of course. And that's the case where we have to get back to the private sector and to work with the companies, especially in the health sector. We are collaborating with a couple of specialized companies from the IT sector, etc.
Thank you very much. We have not yet any questions we received from the participants. So as long as nothing comes in, I'll continue to ask my own questions. So just for you to know, but obviously I will stop as soon as we get questions from our participants. So to me, there is one basic dichotomy, if I may say so, which comes to my mind when I have the pleasure to speak with two smart city agency representatives from Shanghai and Vienna. And one pole would be Shanghai, of which I would say you are incredibly advanced from a technological point of view. And you are testing, experimenting things which, I mean, at the level of technology in the smart city perspective, which European cities are not yet doing. And maybe, you know, sometimes we may be thinking about China as a place where politically things are difficult, but certain things may also be politically more easy. Yes, because you can proceed with new technologies, you can gather new data, and you can actually you can advance in terms of testing new modes of governance in your city, which are very interesting also for other cities, like for example, European cities, yes, but also in other places in the world. On the other side, if we go to Vienna, there are more challenges in terms of political processes, in terms of trust building, in terms of conflict of interest. So to put this positively, a city like Vienna may have more experiences in exchanging with the public, with the target audience of modifying governance in cities in regard to smart cities. But at the same time, it's more difficult to get technologically more advanced and to gather data exchanges, knowledge with these tools. So my first question to the two of you would be, first, is this true? Is it right? Or is it totally nonsense? I mean, you may tell me if you think this is just out of the mind of a moderator. And my second question then would be, you know, depending a little bit on your first answer, I mean, how could, I mean, first maybe, could exchange between such different types of experiences be meaningful? Does it already happen, or how could it be improved? So, well, maybe Nikolaus Summer, I start with you, and then I'll hand over to Mr. Sheng.
Well, to refer to your second question in terms of getting into a collaboration with other cities, we are trying to do that as the city of Vienna is participating in several networks. We are also trying to have exchanges of best practices, of project-related know-how bilaterally with European cities. We are also trying to participate in the international discourse, but it turns out that it's not so easy to do so. From our point of view, there is you know, a lot of enthusiasm when it comes to exchanging know-how. Even in Europe, I think there's a lot of potential and room for maneuver from my point of view, but there are still, you know, certain transaction costs, you know, apart from the language barriers, etc. Because first of all, it starts with resources. If you really want to get into a fruitful and, you know, reasonable exchange, you have to spend resources, and very often, you know, our community and communal managers are very engaged with their tasks, and they don't have the time. It's as simple as that. Even though, and in addition to that, one has to say that cities are still different when it comes to the legal context, when it comes to the size, of course, to the mentality, resource endowment, etc. But of course, there are best practices then that can be shared. That's what we are trying to do, mainly in the European context, because it's to some extent, distance, I think, still matters, and it's also a question of capacity. We would like to, but we cannot kind of be, you know, intensely exchanging with maybe 200 or 300 cities at the same time. That's not possible. But of course, we are trying to benchmark, and we are trying to monitor what leading smart cities are doing. But we are trying to look at it with our Viennese glasses, so to speak, and we try to kind of match the technological value propositions always with our requirements in terms of social inclusion, in terms of ecological footprint, etc., and to identify, you know, the most promising technology. And very often we try to do kind of prototypes, or we try to do tests by ourselves just to accumulate the knowledge and then get back to a certain industry partner. for example. So
thank you, thank you very much, Nikolaus. Still, to push you a little bit on my first question, you know, are you jealous of Shanghai to a certain extent?
No, we are not. I think it's quite natural that cities, you know, have to deal with different contexts, different legal contexts. To come back to your question, referring to how to, you know, best capture the value of data. We are in a different situation here in Europe. European people, they are aware of, data privacy, etc. So we have to, of course, consider that. We have to consider the legal frameworks that are coming from the European level, from the national level, etc. Just to give you one example, we had one quite sophisticated energy research project where we worked together with citizens. They co-created, and they were kind of providing their very personal data. And it took quite some time to come up with the agreements and to make sure that everything is fixed and legally correct, even though the people all wanted to be on the project and were really enthusiastic about sharing their data to contribute to innovation. But nevertheless, there is a different context we have to address, the provisions and the regulations that are in place here in Europe. But of course, we can learn from Asia, and we are trying, to collaborate and to exchange with Asian communities. In the last year, first and foremost, mainly from South Korea and from Singapore, where we have stakeholders and partners, and where we try to learn from. And we are having exchanges with Chinese stakeholders on a regular basis as well, of course.
Thank you very much, Nick Summer. Now, Mr. Sheng, please.
Okay. I think Shanghai had very effective with COVID-19 prevention, and I think there are something very important. And first is I think the lockdown policy is very effective. So in Shanghai, almost we have about 1 month lockdown at the beginning of the 2020. So the lockdown of 1 month almost extinguish almost all the virus, and after the lockdown, Shanghai recovered very quickly to a very normal level. So the people in the cities, they can have very normal life like before. And the second important thing about the COVID-19 is about data. But in Shanghai, we have very restricted laws and regulations about the data privacy. So in Shanghai, the government, maybe they have a lot of data and to ensure the COVID-19 preventions, but the data is in very restricted prevention, so that I don't think so there is any dangerous or possibility to data leak, something like that. So don't worry about it. And the third things about the COVID-19 is the technology about AI and robot, something like I just mentioned. And I noticed a question about how to explain that the Shanghai's COVID numbers are so much lower than in most in the European cities. I think it will be the result of many factors, such as the lockdown policies at the very beginning of the COVID-19, and I think it's the biggest factor. So we have distinguished the virus at the very beginning. And the second about this result is we make a very sustainable control about the COVID-19 prevention, such as the personal QR code to identify if you have going through some dangerous areas, if you have going through if you have gone through the danger areas, you will be asked to have a COVID-19 test and to ensure you are healthy. And about this result, I don't think so you need to be jealous of Shanghai. It's different conditions. So I think the most important about the COVID-19 and the smart city is that we have to keep a balance between the recovery of economy and the citizens' life. So, you know, a lot of citizens will lose their job if you have very restrict and control. If you something like you are asked to stay at home all the time, if you stop the public transportation service, a lot of people will lose their job. But in Shanghai, I think we have a very balanced about the pandemic control and the to keep the to keep the economy in active situations. And also another important things about the COVID-19 is we opened a lot of smart scenarios to the companies. And not only they will help the government to control, to deal with the COVID-19, they also have some business opportunities to sell or to use their products and solutions. That's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheng. Yes, Nick Summer, you would like to.
I just want to add on that a little bit. I think that's a thought that is really to be considered. That a crisis is always an opportunity, and here we in Vienna we also try to utilize the crisis in a productive way, so to speak. For example, we had set up a program we call Innovate for Vienna. That was set up exclusively, so to speak, in this COVID-19 context. And it was a big success because usually we do not see so many local innovations and local innovators participating and coming up with solutions within such a short span of time. So COVID, to frame it positively, also shows that we can be very productive, that our local stakeholders, local companies, local innovators can be very quick when it comes to developing solutions. To market these solutions and to launch them into markets, it's a different story. But in terms of, kind of sourcing the innovation, COVID-19 really proved that there is a lot of potential here in Vienna and probably in every city of the world, because there's so much talent and smart people out there that can come up with solutions. And that's something we should not forget. I think the key is, to incentivize them and to motivate them correctly, that they can come up with solutions.
Thank you so much. Having you two as smart city people with us, I can't resist the temptation to get back to the issue of technology. And to ask you now, in the framework of the pandemic reaction to it, several items were mentioned in terms of data, in terms of support, but also in terms of access, in terms of transport. If you were asked, and you are being asked, if there is a balance sheet, in terms of the effects of technology on asymmetry and democratic access of all the different groups of people to services and to their needs. I mean, would you say that technology actually is an added value. I mean that it improves cohesion, support, solidarity, life quality, governance. You know, infrastructure in the sense of Mayor Swante Mirik was using it. Yes, or is it negative because it's creating more asymmetries? It's more thresholds. It's helping some, but discriminating or helping less others. So, Nick, it's a quick shot. So, what do you think? I know there are no empirical data on such a research, but what would be your statement on this?
Well, personally, my personal opinion is, of course, there's tremendous potential. And I think technology has also proven that it can kind of enable people, empower people, and to get people participating in certain processes. Here in Vienna, we are, of course, trying to build up an infrastructure, a service infrastructure that is framed as so-called e-government services. And of course, one of the very basic goals is to avoid any kind of discrimination, to kind of work around through, kind of digital divides that are maybe looming. So in Vienna, it's very important if you set up, a new service, a new digital service, it's important still to kind of also offer a offline complement, not to discriminate people. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is, I think the potential is there. If somebody is a historian and is studying the history of technology and technology development, it's always, I think, the same deal. There is a trade-off between potential and risk. And if things are set up correctly, if the technological value proposition is analyzed carefully, if the consequences of a technology are understood properly and holistically, I think there is tremendous potential, especially when it comes to digital innovation, to really even get more people involved. I think there are tremendous examples out there, maybe also from Europe, but one that comes into my mind, for example, is the M-Pesa system from Kenya, for example, that enabled a lot of people by providing people with kind of a mobile telecommunications account and replacing the need for a bank account or something, and that enabled a lot of people, to participate in the economy and to get active, to act like entrepreneurs. And the same thing is true in Vienna, of course. So we try to set up platforms to incentivize people, to motivate people to get their things going, to simplify their lives also. And we are happy when we can also address target groups and dialogue groups, for example, like elderly people who are not known to be the front runners in using digital services and technologies. I think it's a matter of how to set it up. And if the setup is proper and correct and sound, I think there is a lot of opportunity to improve quality of life and the lives of our citizens, no matter whether you're in Vienna or in Shanghai or in Africa, I think.
So Africa, we can't ask right now, but Mr. Sheng, Shanghai.
Yeah, I think basically the technology and now it have a very positive effect on cities, and I think some new technologies like AI, like blockchains and big data, they have very positive effect on the city's operating efficiency. And not only the governance will be easy to understand, and for the citizens, they will have more convenient service from the government. Like in Shanghai, we have a one-stop government service, and so we don't need to go to different sectors of the government to acquire different service. We can use one website to acquire almost all the government service. So it was very easy, and it will be very convenient for the citizens to have a very the very good service from the government. And meanwhile, the government will also have more opportunities to make the city operating in higher efficiency, like the public transportations. We use the big data and AI technologies. We can have more smoothly transportations flows, and to adjust the public transportations with the better solutions. And all of this means we have better life conditions in the cities. But at the same time, we also need to consider the negative of the high technology, negative of the smart cities. I think this is the point Mr. Nikolaus just mentioned, especially the digital divide to the elderly peoples. And in Shanghai, you know, the almost 35% of the citizens in Shanghai, they are elder people. They are older people. So it's a very high percentage. It's a very high level. So what we need to consider in next phase to construct smart cities, we need to consider how to make the elderly people to use smart applications, such like you should help them to use Uber, use Didi. It's very similar applications, very similar with Uber applications. And also they need to go to the hospital. They need to go to buy something, go to shopping. And in Shanghai, almost all the shops, they use Alipay. I'm not sure if you know Alipay. It's an online payment method. But many of the elder people, they cannot use. They don't know how to use it. So we are now call for volunteers to have a very important action to help the elder people to use, to live in to how to have a better life in this digital time. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sheng. Now I see that we also have, I mean, of course, we only have interesting participants in this workshop, but we have Saula Ospanova from the OSCE, the Organization for Security Cooperation in Europe, with us. And we used to have an exchange at an earlier occasion regarding the relevance of this semantic of smart cities, also exchanges within the OSCE. So I'm very much aware that China is not a member of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And so it's her as an expert, not her representing an international organization which would directly affect China. But still, I think, Mr. Sheng, for you, it's okay if I ask Saula Ospanova to maybe just give also her opinion as an expert on these exchanges and potential between city. Saula, would you be ready to tell us something and to also turn on your camera so that we can see you?
Okay, I turned on my camera. Do you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Excellent. Well, hello, Laurent, and thank you for inviting me to this workshop and to Basel Peace Forum. I was actually following with fascination, you know, this dialogue, Vienna, Shanghai, you know, and I myself right now sitting in Vienna, so that was double, you know, fascination. So, you know, yes, you mentioned as OSCE, as Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, you know, we and I am representing the environmental activities of this organization, you know, so we mainly, you know, wanted to develop an initiative on smart cities. And in fact, you know, we had a side event at one of our forums, you know, back in 2019, where Laurent was one of the, you know, panel members. And I think what we were trying, I suppose, you know, to address is, you know, to see the cities as a sort of a hub of addressing various complex, you know, problems, you know, where both green technologies, where issues of sustainability, security, you know, migration, health, you know, they all sort of collide in a rather complex, you know, manner. And in one of the, I believe it was last year's Basel Peace Forum, the working group discussion, where we had representatives of OECD, you know, from the urban, you know, development also joining, and because they also deal with those problems. I think this kind of systemic, let's say, addressing of these problems it manifests itself in the cities, you know, in urban planning. So I think when I did follow the mayor's also dialogue, and now the dialogue between Nikolaus and Xuefeng, basically this is so representative of the type of, you know, issues actually we're trying to also, you know, address for our participating states. Now, of course, in 2020, we faced a lot of delayed, you know, response and reactions, and we couldn't quite follow or advance some of the, you know, initiatives, but we would like to still, you know, participate in this dialogue and support it in any way we can. And City of Vienna and City of Basel, City of Nur-Sultan, City of Tirana were participating in at various stages of this sort of a preliminary dialogue. And I'm hoping that we will see continuity in this, and I hope that we can take it forward. From my side, of course, I will be supportive of it in any way I can. For issues of digitalization, you know, in fact, I think, you know, both the issues of digital divide, but also the access, but also security. And this is where, you know, sometimes some of the polarity, you know, enters into the picture. So diversity of opinions. And I believe, you know, these dialogue platforms perhaps would help us out to even informally exchange and come to some kind of understanding how it can be addressed in a better way, how regulations at city level, at regional level, sub-regional level, how they can be facilitated, and how that maybe exchange can be facilitated and constructive dialogue. So I'm hoping that we'll see more of it. I thank Laurent, I thank, you know, you for the invitation, and I hope we can continue this dialogue. On my side, from the OEC side, I would like to again state that we are planning to have a couple of activities still to take last year's sort of plans and move them forward this year, hopefully in a more meaningful way. So I look forward to our further engagement, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Saula, for this complementing perspective and view. And of course, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe is a rather large, far-reaching organization, and yet we realize today that it also has its limits. We have Mr. Sheng from Shanghai. We had Svante from Ithaca, which is actually is a member of the OSCE. I was going to say something stupid, but we also had Yvonne Aki-Sawyer from Sierra Leone in Africa. So it's a topic which is all encompassing, and so I think personally it would be for sure a very worthwhile attempt to already have some meaningful exchange within the network of the OSCE, but then also looking beyond. And having said this, and maybe get to the last part of our discussion, Yvonne Aki-Sawyer, as I said in the very beginning of the first part of this workshop, unfortunately couldn't be with us, but she made this very spontaneously, this very, for me, also emotionally important contribution. And a city like Freetown, where 77%, that was the figures he mentioned, of the population doesn't have access to proper water resources, which is meaningful, particularly in regards to a situation of pandemic. But of course, it's not only this. I mean, it's symptomatic for the general lack of infrastructure, and then we had the statements of Swante Mirik saying, actually exaggerating just a little bit, mayors should be in charge of everything. Because they have so many immediate problems they have to deal with. And when we talk about international cooperation, we mostly talk about states, or we talk about international organizations. But what about the role of cities and all their experiences, and having this political framework on one side, but on the other side, really also the experience of very concrete examples, and some of them also having the means to act. I mean, do you see a potential for cities to become even more interactive than they are now? Also from I know development cooperation is not a very popular expression anymore, but let's say in a north-south perspective, east-west, let's say in a more global perspective than what we usually observe. Next summer, maybe Vienna is already very active in this field, and I didn't mention it, but just let us know.
In part, so to speak. Yes, I believe that there is tremendous potential for cities, collaborating and working together. We are trying to do that, especially when it comes to capacity building. For example, next week we are going to have a workshop with the city of Tirana, for example, where we will exchange best practices when it comes to government, when it comes to governance. I'm sorry, when it comes to best practice approaches in terms of financing and in terms of project setup, etc. So our experience, or from our point of view, it is quite worth thinking about, bigger cities, metropolis, acting as kind of regional hubs, regional smart city hubs, and helping maybe smaller communities in the neighboring areas, for example, that do not have that much capacity, that much resources, financial resources, human resources, talent, but also kind of assets to also be successful in this kind of transformation. That's to some extent Vienna's approach. We think we could create some benefit for communities in our neighboring areas that are maybe smaller, that cannot afford to provide their own technologies, for example, who do not have the possibility to participate in science networks, who are not known for having a lot of research entities, research organizations or institutions on site. That's something that is, seems pragmatic to us. And referring to your questions, whether it's suitable to also collaborate over distance, I would say also yes, because if you go to the business school, they tell you in the innovation course that you have to insource new ideas from distant markets and from distant areas, because there the likelihood and the opportunity is there that you really create something new, rather than always having, the same kind of exchanges with your peers that are exposed to the same situation, dealing with the same problems, the same kind of social landscapes, the same political landscapes. So it can be, of course, refreshing and inspiring to get together with stakeholders, with other cities and communities, with representatives from them, who are in a completely different situation, and maybe you can find creative solutions by applying their ideas in your own context, I would say.
Thank you very much, Nikolaus Summer. Mr. Sheng, what would you answer to this question?
And I agree that, and we need more global cooperations in these special times, especially in the smart city and the digitalizations. In 2020, we invite many mayors from the global cities, like the mayor of Basel. We invite her to make speech via internet to introduce the city of Basel, the smart city of the Basel. And with that, we can have more communications and cooperations between different cities, and to share our experience and share our technologies, and to help the companies from different cities to work together and to deal with the pandemic more efficient and help the economy to recover more quickly. And also, I think in the next stage, we can have more sustainable network about the city of corporations, like in Vienna, between Vienna and Shanghai. And I also look forward to invite Mr. Nikolaus to talk more about smart cities sometimes in 2021. You know, we have some forums and summits which will be held in the summers. You know, if we can invite you to Shanghai, you can see how the smart city Shanghai operate, and to have more. You can see more scenarios about the hospital, about the transportations, about the industries. So it will be very important to communicate with each other, especially with such as this forum. I think it's a very good platform to exchange our opinions, exchange our experiences. So that's very good.
I would like to thank you for your invitation. The same from our side. It would be a pleasure, you know, to get into more of a sound conversation with you, no matter which kind of communication technology, which kind of communication channel we can use. It would be a great pleasure, you know, to visit your city and to have a local walk around, of course, because it gives you always a better feel when you're on site. And the same, if you have the opportunity, you know, to get to Vienna, we are always open for exchange of knowledge. And thank you very much. We really appreciate that, and looking forward to the development of a globally leading city like Shanghai. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think with this, we are coming to a natural end of this panel. And I would like to thank both of you, Mr. Sheng and Mr. Summer, for your very concrete, open sharing of ideas, also differences, complementarities. And I think the spirit and the atmosphere of this panel really showed that there is potential for discussion. And I'd really like you, but also the participants who didn't ask so many questions, but remained with us, most of them. So, I mean, this is a good sign to pursue the exchanges for sure in regard to the Basel Peace Forum. And Swiss Peace will remain interested in developing further these perspectives of the role of cities in regard to peace, conflict, crisis, pandemics, but also constructive measures in terms of preventing negative consequences of such events, and also new modes of governance linked to technologies, trying to master the challenges and to improve social cohesion, prosperity, and the perspectives in general of possibly all cities in North, South, West, and East. So thank you very much for your contributions. This is now the end of this workshop. There are still parallel ongoing panel discussions, but otherwise there's also the possibility to have a break now. And I hope to see most of you on the panel of the day, which will start in about 45 minutes at 4:15 Central European time. Mr. Sheng, I think this might be a little bit late for you, but thank you for having been with us, for having spent the evening with the Basel Peace Forum. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.